You mentioned earlier you were talking to people with the CSA,
Mm-hmm.
and given their reported efforts to move towards acting more as a national association,
Mm-hmm.
how do you see that, the potential to have a competing national organization impacting the direction of the AAAOM?
Well, I think all of us will agree that unity would be better. Okay, so I'm in discussions now with the leadership of the CSA, and they've been very cordial. In fact, I just emailed with them this morning, so we're scheduled to have a talk sometime next week. So I'm hopeful that that we can basically resolve some of the potential differences of opinion, and then actually bring us all together under one tent.
Do you have a sense of what the timeline might be on that? I mean, there was in essence at the leadership meeting there was what may be typified as an ultimatum that was delivered, and and now you're having conversations. Do you have a sense of when the profession might be in a position to expect a decision on what direction the organizations will go?
This would only be conjecture on my part. It was not discussed. So I personally would like to see this resolved relatively soon, certainly within the first 3 to 6 months from now. But that will depend on, it doesn't entirely depend on me. So it depends how our discussions go. They're very cordial right now. So I'm very, very hopeful.
Can you talk a little bit about the 10-day window that the CSA presented in their proposal to have the current AAAOM board step down? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I am familiar with that particular ultimatum. I think some of that was driven by frustration. Perhaps they felt that their voices were not being heard now. Mm-hmm. Well, again, that's changed now. And so that's why I'm engaging them and talking to them and finding out, what is it that they felt they were not getting, and then seeing if I can provide, along with the board members, provide that. Okay. So hopefully that'll be sufficient, because creating another organization, particularly one made out of volunteers, requires a lot of time and energy. And what I try to tell people is this: the organization is a good organization. It has structure. It has resources. It has a number of things that take a lot of time. Bylaws put in place. It has a journal. It has a monthly newsletter. It has a lot of things that are there, which are excellent. And to actually have to duplicate these efforts, it's really inefficient use of the resources that exist in the profession, and the profession doesn't have a lot of resources. Okay, mm-hmm. So I think all of us agree on that. That it would be much better if it was just one organization instead of creating two. Okay. But some of this was certainly born out of frustration, mm-hmm. which is what I and the board are trying to deal with right now.
As you talk to some of the leaders within the profession, mm-hmm. what would you say would be the top 2 or 3 things that they would require from the AAAOM in terms of changes or actions that would make maintaining a single national organization more palatable?
That is a good question, because when I read your articles, that was never articulated about what specifically, and about what specific positions, for example, are. That was never really made clear to me, and so that's what I'm trying to determine now. Again, this is why it's helpful to talk to people, to distill it down to, okay, what is it that you would like? Okay, and then so I take a look at it that way. What is it you would like? And then let me see what I can do about that. So I always begin from the position of listening to a person, and then let me help them and come to a solution. So that's where I'm at right now. And it's fortunate that we are having very cordial discussions. So that's why I'm very hopeful that eventually I think we can come to some agreement and that we can all move forward together.
Are there any action items that are currently on the list?
Action items, please clarify.
Are there any things that the CSA or other leaders have provided for you in your conversations that would be on your list of things that the AAAOM would need to do in order to maintain its status as the national association?
Well, they would, certainly the state associations would like the national organization to be, I guess, be more inclusive. Okay, and so you see this kind of dichotomy that exists in our government, federal government versus state. There's always this kind of tension that exists because things that look okay maybe on the federal level may not look so great on the state level. So there's always this kind of dichotomy that exists, and that's the challenge of really having a big tent or having a large organization. Okay, so again, that's the challenge that we face having a national organization. So definitely to be more receptive and more open to input from the states is something that they would want, and that this definitely is something they're going to get.
Through our reporting, we found out through numerous sources that the AAAOM has lost a lot of support from various state organizations that are associated with TSA. How confident...
TSA?
The CSA?
Oh, it's the TSA. It's the transportation. I was like, okay.
The CSA. How confident are you that you're going to be able to regain that support from many of the state associations who have dropped off from supporting the AAAOM in the last few years?
I'm very confident on a personal level, and given the way things are going, yes, I would be very confident about that. The question is, and I told people this, can people be patient? Okay, change doesn't happen overnight. Okay, so I'm asking people to just be patient. And I know a lot of this goes back a few years, and it's very difficult to be patient. Okay, and as I've talked to various people involved in this whole saga, the advantage, and I tell them this, I'm coming in with a beginner's mind. So I'm coming in fresh. And that has advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is that I don't have all the history, particularly the negative history, that some people, organizations may have. So I'm just coming in with a clean slate that way. The negative to that, of course, is I don't have the history, so I have to educate myself to that history. Okay, so with all things, there is both a positive and negative to it. Okay, but I said I remain hopeful that way, and I think that I certainly feel that the situation can be salvaged and it can be turned around, but people do need to just give it a little time. And you know, the old saying of actions speak louder than words is very, very true here. And so this is why I want to start things, again, like the webinar, like these marketing toolkits, you know, getting these other things going that affect people directly. They can feel that, okay? So, for example, focusing on the mission part of the AAA, let's say on legislative advocacy, is kind of what I call an intangible benefit. Similar to like you pay your taxes, right? And they improve infrastructure of the roads. Okay, well that doesn't really mean a lot to people. These things need to be done, but on a day-to-day basis, it doesn't really mean that much to you. Versus getting a tax cut or a tax credit, which puts money back in your pocket. That is very tangible. You feel it now. Okay, so I think it's important that the AAAOM basically get things that people can feel now, very tangible benefits, and I think they will then give me the space and the board space to start making the changes that will, so that basically the AAA can be a little bit more conclusive and people can be happier.